Hi, my fellow Americans. I'm Dr. Stephen Clark Bradley, and this is what I think. Now, we left off our last video talking about why Joe Biden and Kamala Harris should never be president and vice president of the United States and their legacy of lies and corruption. And we left off, we were talking about how Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden had colluded together and gained $1.5 billion. That's with a B, billion dollars, through a corrupt arrangement, equities agreement that even Goldman Sachs and all the other, Deutsche Bank and so many others could never ever get from the Chinese government. But they gave it to a man who had no background in China, had no knowledge of finance, all because his last name was Biden. And of course, Biden and Biden should be the name of their company because they both benefited from the same deal, the same corruption that they practiced in the name of America, in the name of a man of power, the Vice President of the United States. So let's do a little bit of review. Then we're going to move into the Ukraine connection. It sounds like a movie, doesn't it? The Ukraine connection, but it's real. So in review, in the Biden-China collusion connection, Hunter Biden traveled to China with Vice President Biden on Air Force One in December of 2012. Hunter Biden walked out of China. Let me say it this way. Hunter Biden walked into China, a former drug addict, kicked out of the Navy, divorced his wife to marry his dead brother's wife, and walked in there and then walked back out a billionaire with $1.5 billion, which he received a deal for 10 days after he arrived back in America. Unbelievable. While his father, Joe Biden, was vice president, all this took place as he traveled there in Air Force Two with the vice president. So, Hunter Biden sold his business to a company that had serious, deep ties with the Chinese military. So he actually helped the Chinese military gain a stronger foothold in the world and colluded against the United States, and his father helped him. Believe me. And we also pointed out that just yesterday, when asked in a town hall meeting, is China our enemy? He said, no, China is our competitor, not our enemy. Tell me, when does an enemy spy on you? A competitor spy on you with impunity? When does a competitor cheat you and let their money float and their monetary system be fake so that their money always seems strong when it's actually so weak? So it is true, as I pointed out, if they were a normal country and practiced on the normal laws, international laws of finance, yeah, they would be a competitor, but they could never compete with us then. That's why they cheat. And that's why Donald Trump has taken them on, placed sanctions on them, and forced them to come down and let their feet touch the ground finally and realize that we're not going to take it anymore. If you put Joe Biden in, throw Donald Trump out, we go back to what it used to be, and we will be in hock to China, just like Joe Biden himself is, because he colluded with them against the United States of America. You still want to vote for him? I hope not. But let's move on. But let's just ask ourselves a question. In the relationship between America and China, China is becoming very strong, very powerful. I lived in China for 9 years. I have seen what that nation was like in 2013 when I arrived there. And I see what it's like today in 2020 when I left there. That country is a completely different nation than it was then. They have a new president since then. His name is Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping is the modern day face of Adolf Hitler. He is a one evil son of a bitch. He is. And this man should never, ever be regarded as our friend. Donald Trump tried when he became president to have a normal relationship, to put us on an even footing. And of course, China likes to talk the big game, and they'll say one thing in front of you, and they'll do another thing behind you. Happens all the time. That's the way it works in China. Michael Pillsbury in the 100-Year Marathon talks about that. And he mentions how China plays the game to talk to you so nice to your face, and the whole time behind your back, putting a knife in your back. Donald Trump knew that. And that's why he placed tariffs. That's why we are decoupling from China today. Joe Biden wants to put us right back together. He was no different with the Ukraine. Neither was his son Hunter Biden. Barack Obama placed Joe Biden in charge of the relationship between America and the Ukraine. And at a certain time, they had pledged $1 billion to go to the Ukraine. Now, you've probably heard all this, but let's just refresh our memories and look at it again. After Joe Biden left the vice presidency, he bragged in a meeting that he was having of how he had strong-armed the Ukrainian government to fire a prosecutor who was investigating Burisma, who was the company that Hunter Biden was working for. Hunter Biden went into the Ukraine, and he received a deal where he was receiving more than $50,000 a month, working for an oil company, and he had no background whatsoever, just like in China. And all because his name was Biden. And when Burisma, who was owned by an oligarch, and a very evil man, and was being investigated by a prosecutor appointed by the Ukraine government, all of a sudden Joe Biden has to stop it. His son's being investigated for corruption. And rightly so, by the way. It absolutely should be investigated. Why does he have a job making $50,000 a month doing nothing again? Because his last name is Biden. That is the way they make their money. As I said earlier, Joe Biden was a poor man when he became a senator 47 years ago. And today, he's a very wealthy man, lives in a mansion with a big gate and wall around it. Is that because he's vice president before? No, because he stole money from the United States of America. In the name of the United States of America, he enriched himself through his son. They asked Hunter Biden, do you think that you would have gotten these positions if your dad was not vice president, if your name was not Biden? And his answer was, probably not. At least he's being honest about that, surprisingly. So we don't hear much about Hunter Biden now because he's hiding out, because he's one of the biggest reasons why his father should never be elected president of the United States, because together they colluded. Let me just read to you. This is exactly what was said by Joe Biden related to the Ukraine and how he conducted a quid pro quo, which, by the way, was blamed on Trump. Can you believe that? The whole impeachment, unbelievable fake impeachment, was based on some erroneous fantasy that Donald Trump conducted a quid pro quo on the new president of the Ukraine, which absolutely was a lie and was proven a lie. That's why the impeachment never went anywhere. But just remember what they did to your president. They put impeachment in his legacy for something he never did. But they never even investigated Joe Biden for something he absolutely did and even bragged about it. Even bragged about it. This is what he said. I'm going to read it to you. We're not going to give you the $1 billion, he told the Ukrainian government. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said, I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the billion. I'm going to be leaving here in, I think it was about 6 hours. I looked at them and said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor is not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch, he said, and then laughter. He got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time. Now, That is a set in stone definition of a quid pro quo. And yet nothing was ever even questioned of this evil man who wants to be your president now. They wasted lots of money, lots of time during the time that COVID-19 was coming into our country, when it was infecting our people. And the Democrat Party, all they did was spend their time trying to impeach an innocent president. And now they blame COVID-19 on Donald Trump. Whose fault was it really? When all that time could have been spent preparing our stuff, having all the materials that we needed, getting ready for this virus that was coming into our country. And all they did was wrap the president's time and energy trying to preserve his presidency and to defend himself against an accusation that was totally baseless. And all the Democrat Party ever did was oppose Donald Trump. But when we have here, not just in writing, but on video, by the man himself, Joe Biden, saying it himself, and never even one word. Never even one question. And when it came up that it was Joe Biden who did the quid pro quo, oh no, that's not a quid pro quo. That was policy. That's not policy. That's Joe Biden protecting his son, who was corrupt, and protecting the money that his son was getting, who was going into Joe Biden's hand and in his own pocket. That's what we see today. And then that kind of man wants to be your president. And of course, he picked that kind of woman too to be vice president. Birds of a feather flock together, as they say. Even Democrat ones. So this is what he's done. So we see Hunter Biden, a cocaine addict, dishonorably discharged from the U.S. Navy for failing a drug test, was appointed to the board of Burisma, a natural gas company for which he had no experience whatsoever, and was under investigation for corruption, which was owned by a Ukrainian oligarch, and was receiving over $50,000 a month salary for doing nothing. And do you know when he resigned from that? When Joe Biden announced his candidacy for president of the United States. Not until. This is a man who had married his own sister-in-law of his dead brother, divorced his wife. The kind of man, the kind of family that Joe Biden has. And I don't like to say that bad things about people, but we have to say that this kind of man should never step foot again into the Oval Office. He was in there with Barack Obama just for a visit, now and again, I'm sure. But he should never call it his office. Donald J. Trump has proven why he deserves to be reelected. He has built the best economy. He has preserved the lives of the American people. He changed justice laws and got people who were in prison way farther longer than they ever should have been and brought back justice to people's lives. He has reduced unemployment. He has increased our salaries. I mean, Donald Trump has done everything. He's kept us out of war. And yet Joe Biden will say everything's his fault. The other day, Joe Biden said, every single COVID death is Donald Trump's fault. Can you believe that? When it was the Democrat Party that had us all wrapped up in impeachment during the time that COVID was coming into America and did nothing but wrap up the president in a defense of his administration. It's really sad. Now he wants to be your president. This man who did nothing for 47 years. And like Donald Trump himself has said, I'll say to you, Donald Trump did more in 47 months than Joe Biden ever did in 47 years, except enrich himself. Unbelievable. Now the choice is ours. We're going to go back in. We have some more points we're going to point out in our next video about Joe Biden, and we'll probably wrap it up with that. So join me back here for the fourth video. I know you don't want to miss it. It's going to help you make your decision and show you why Joe Biden should never be president of the United States. Thank you very much. I'll see you a little bit later.